My name is Catherine, and I'm a 63-year-old retired school teacher from Michigan. All my life, I've been careful with money, saving diligently for retirement while living modestly. Nothing prepared me for that evening when my son Gregory handed me mortgage papers for his luxury beach house, smiling expectantly. "You've saved enough, Mom. It's time to help the family," he said confidently. When I refused, I never imagined my own child would sue me for $550,000. But the day we faced each other in court didn't go as he planned. Before I share my story, let me know where you're watching from. If you've ever had to make tough financial decisions with family, please like and subscribe. My story begins in the small town of Lakefield, Michigan, where I grew up in a working-class family. My father worked at the local paper mill, and my mother was a part-time secretary at the elementary school. They taught me the value of hard work and saving for the future. Every penny was accounted for in our household, and extravagances were rare special occasions. I followed my passion for teaching and worked as a public school teacher for 35 years, mostly teaching 4th grade. The salary wasn't extraordinary, but I loved my job and the opportunity to shape young minds. I met my husband David during my 2nd year of teaching. He was a mechanical engineer at a manufacturing plant outside town. We married after dating for 2 years and built our life together based on similar values about money. David and I agreed early in our marriage to live below our means. We bought a modest 3-bedroom house that we could comfortably afford, drove our cars until repairs became too expensive, and rarely took lavish vacations. Instead, we prioritized saving for retirement and our children's education. Our financial discipline wasn't about deprivation. It was about security and peace of mind. We were blessed with 2 children. Gregory came first, followed by his sister Amanda 4 years later. From the beginning, they had different personalities, especially when it came to money. Gregory always wanted the newest toys and brand-name clothes. He'd compare what he had to what his friends had and often complained about our frugal approach. Amanda was more like us, practical and understanding of the difference between needs and wants. As they grew up, David and I tried to teach both children about financial responsibility. We gave them allowances tied to chores, helped them open savings accounts, and talked openly about budgeting. Amanda embraced these lessons, but Gregory seemed resistant. By high school, Gregory was constantly asking for money beyond his allowance, while Amanda saved for things she wanted. When college time arrived, we had education funds for both children. We'd saved enough to cover tuition at state schools, but Gregory insisted on attending an expensive private university. Against our better judgment, we agreed to help with the additional cost, dipping into our retirement savings. Amanda chose the state university and graduated with minimal debt, immediately finding a job and establishing her independence. Gregory's pattern of financial dependence continued after college. He'd call with emergencies, car repairs, rent. He couldn't cover credit card debt that surprised him. Each time David and I would discuss the situation and usually end up helping, though we tried to set limits. We paid for his graduate school when he decided his undergraduate degree wasn't enough. We helped with the down payment on his first condo, believing it would help him build equity and financial stability. 7 years ago, David was diagnosed with aggressive pancreatic cancer. During his final months, we had many difficult conversations about the future. One night, as I sat beside his hospital bed, he made me promise something. "Catherine," he said, holding my hand weakly, "you need to protect yourself financially. Gregory will keep asking for more. You can't drain your retirement to fund his lifestyle. Promise me you'll be strong." With tears in my eyes, I promised. After David passed away, I followed his wishes. I consulted with a financial advisor, consolidated our accounts, and created a structured financial plan for my retirement years. I downgraded to a smaller house to reduce expenses. I was determined to honor David's concern for my financial security. Gregory seemed to respect this initially, perhaps understanding the emotional weight of his father's passing. But as months turned into years, his financial requests resumed, gradually increasing in frequency and amount. Amanda, meanwhile, had married a kind software developer named James, had 2 children, and was building her own financial security, rarely asking for anything. I never imagined how dramatically things would escalate, or that my own son would try to use the legal system to access my retirement savings. But that's exactly what happened, beginning with an invitation to visit his new property in Florida. The call came on a Tuesday afternoon in March. "Mom, great news! Stephanie and I bought a new place in Florida, and we want you to come see it," Gregory said excitedly. His wife Stephanie added her enthusiastic invitation in the background. I was genuinely happy for them. Gregory worked in marketing for a technology company, and Stephanie was a real estate agent. Perhaps they were finally achieving financial stability. 2 weeks later, I flew to Tampa, where Gregory picked me up in a brand new luxury SUV I hadn't seen before. "Just got it last month," he mentioned casually when I commented on the vehicle. We needed something appropriate for showing properties to Stephanie's high-end clients. As we drove towards the coast, Gregory chatted about work and filled me in on their social life in Florida. They had moved from Atlanta about 6 months earlier, when Stephanie got an opportunity with a prestigious real estate firm, specializing in luxury properties. "The Florida market is booming, Mom. We're finally in a position to build real wealth," he said confidently. I felt a surge of pride, thinking perhaps all our financial lessons had finally taken root. Maybe the years of helping him through difficult spots had been worthwhile after all. When we turned onto a private road lined with towering palm trees and manicured landscaping, I felt the first twinge of unease. We passed several enormous homes before Gregory pulled into a driveway. "Here we are, home sweet home," he announced proudly. Before me stood a stunning modern beach house with floor-to-ceiling windows facing the Gulf of Mexico. The architecture was striking. All clean lines, natural materials, and open spaces. It looked like something from an architectural magazine or luxury real estate listing. "Gregory," I said hesitantly, "this is incredible." I couldn't find other words as he led me through a massive front door into an expansive, open-concept living area with panoramic ocean views. "Wait until you see the rest," he beamed, giving me a tour of 6 bedrooms, 7 bathrooms, a home theater, wine cellar, infinity pool, and private beach access. The furnishings were all clearly high-end, the artwork original, and no expense had been spared on finishes and technology. Stephanie joined us for the tour's conclusion, greeting me warmly. "What do you think of our dream home, Catherine? Isn't it perfect?" Her diamond jewelry sparkled as she gestured around the space. During dinner on their oceanfront terrace that evening, I finally asked the question that had been bothering me since arrival. "This is certainly spectacular, but how are you affording this? This must be a multi-million-dollar property." Gregory and Stephanie exchanged glances before he replied. "Well, that's actually something we wanted to discuss with you." He stood up and retrieved a folder from inside, placing it in front of me. "We've made the initial purchase and put down what we could, but we need some help with finalizing everything." I opened the folder to find mortgage papers for $550,000, a substantial sum, but clearly only a portion of the property's worth. I looked up questioningly. "Mom, you've always been so good with money," Gregory said, his tone shifting to something I recognized from his childhood, the voice he used when asking for something expensive. "You have all that retirement savings just sitting there, more than you'll ever need for yourself. It's time some of that money helped the family." I was stunned. "Gregory, this is my retirement fund. It's not just sitting there. It's ensuring I can live independently and cover potential medical costs as I age." "You've always been too cautious," he countered. "You live like you're still on a teacher's salary when you and Dad accumulated significant wealth. This is an investment opportunity for you too." Stephanie joined in. "Your name wouldn't even be on the mortgage. We'd make the payments. We just need help with this part of the financing." I tried to explain that my financial security wasn't excessive prudence, but responsible planning. Gregory's expression hardened as I spoke. "So you're saying no, you'd rather hoard money you don't need instead of helping your own son?" The argument escalated quickly. Gregory mentioned specific figures from my accounts, information I had shared with him years ago during tax season when he'd offered to help organize my finances. He calculated what he thought I should be willing to part with, as though my savings were communal family property. You and Dad always helped with everything before. Why stop now when it really matters? He demanded. This isn't helping with tuition or a reasonable down payment. I responded, my voice shaking. This is over $500,000 for a luxury home far beyond reasonable needs. Stephanie interjected. Your generation had it so much easier. Affordable housing, stable jobs. You don't understand how difficult things are for us. The conversation devolved further with Gregory eventually stating, This is your responsibility to the family. If you've saved enough to leave a decent inheritance, you've saved enough to help us now when we actually need it. I finally stood up, gathering my purse. I'm sorry, but my answer is no. I love you both, but this request is inappropriate. I called a taxi and checked into a hotel near the airport, tears streaming down my face as I left the beautiful beach house. That night, and for days afterward, my phone buzzed constantly with texts and calls from Gregory, alternating between apologies, guilt trips, and veiled threats about how I'd regret my decision. I returned to Michigan heartbroken, wondering where I'd gone wrong as a parent to create such entitlement in my son. Exactly 17 days after I returned home from Florida, I received a certified letter that changed everything. With trembling hands, I opened the formal legal document to discover that my own son was suing me for $550,000, claiming I had verbally agreed to provide this funding and that he had made financial commitments based on this promise. The lawsuit claimed I had consistently established a pattern of financial support and that Gregory had reasonable expectation of continued assistance. It further alleged that I had specifically discussed helping with their Florida home purchase during a family dinner the previous Thanksgiving, a conversation that had never happened. I sat at my kitchen table, the document blurring through my tears, feeling as though I couldn't breathe. Never in my wildest nightmares had I imagined facing a lawsuit from my own child. My hands shook so badly that I dropped the phone twice trying to call Amanda. Amanda arrived at my house 2 hours later, having dropped everything at work to drive to my home when she heard the panic in my voice. She held me while I sobbed, then read through the lawsuit with growing indignation. This is ridiculous, Mom. These claims are completely fabricated, she said firmly. Gregory has gone too far this time. That evening, Amanda helped me call Thomas, a lawyer friend who had helped with David's will. Though family law wasn't his specialty, he reviewed the documents and provided initial reassurance that Gregory's claims seemed weak. But you need proper representation, he advised. This isn't something to handle informally. The following day, Thomas referred me to Patricia Winters, an attorney specializing in family law with experience in cases involving financial disputes between parents and adult children. Her hourly rate made me wince, but I recognized the necessity. During our first meeting, Patricia's confidence helped calm my frayed nerves. Based on what you've shared, Mrs. Harmon, your son's case appears to lack substantial merit. Verbal contracts within families are notoriously difficult to prove, especially when there's no evidence of the agreement. However, we need to take this seriously and prepare thoroughly. While Patricia began working on my defense, Gregory escalated his campaign against me. He contacted extended family members telling his version of events, that I had explicitly promised to help finance their home, that they had made commitments based on this promise, and that I was now vindictively withholding funds I didn't need. My sister called from Arizona, concerned about what she'd heard. My niece sent a text asking why I was being so harsh with Gregory. Even my brother-in-law, David's brother, reached out questioning my decision. The betrayal cut deep, not just from Gregory, but from family members ready to believe the worst without hearing my side. The stress began affecting my health. I developed insomnia, losing weight as my appetite diminished. My doctor prescribed anxiety medication after my blood pressure readings alarmed him. "This level of stress at your age isn't something to ignore," he warned, suggesting therapy in addition to medication. Throughout this nightmare, Amanda remained my rock. She stayed with me several nights a week, organized my documentation for the lawyer, and fiercely defended me to family members who had sided with Gregory. "If you're going to believe his lies without evidence, then maybe Mom is better off without your support," she told my sister bluntly. Our relationship grew stronger through this ordeal, but the contrast between my two children became painfully stark. How had I raised two people with such different values? What had I done wrong with Gregory? These questions haunted my sleepless nights. Patricia assured me we were building a strong defense, but warned the emotional cost of facing my son in court would be significant. "Are you certain you want to proceed with fighting this? Sometimes people settle just to end the emotional trauma even when they're in the right," she suggested carefully. "I made a promise to my husband to protect myself financially," I replied firmly. "And now I need to show Gregory that there are consequences to his actions. Settling would only reinforce his belief that he can manipulate and bully me into giving him money." As the court date approached, the pressure from Gregory intensified. Stephanie called crying, claiming they would lose deposits and face financial ruin without my help. Gregory left voicemails alternating between rage and tearful pleas. I forwarded everything to Patricia, who documented each contact as evidence of their attempted manipulation. With the court date looming just 6 weeks away, Patricia developed a comprehensive strategy for my defense. "We need to document everything," she explained during one of our many meetings. "Every financial gift or assistance you've provided to Gregory, every conversation about money, every agreement made or not made." I began the painstaking process of combing through decades of financial records, bank statements, canceled checks, tax returns, and email correspondence, all potentially relevant to establishing the history of my financial relationship with Gregory. Amanda took time off work to help creating organized digital and physical files of everything we found. The evidence painted a clear picture. Since Gregory's college years, I had provided over $175,000 in financial assistance, helping with tuition, covering credit card debt, providing the down payment for his first condo, and numerous smaller emergency situations. Each instance was documented, and many included communications showing these were gifts, not loans, and certainly not ongoing commitments. During this process, we made a disturbing discovery. Gregory had apparently attempted similar manipulations with his father-in-law. Among my email archives was a message Gregory had accidentally sent to me instead of Stephanie, detailing a strategy to convince her parents to invest in a business venture that never materialized. The email specifically mentioned using emotional leverage to access their retirement savings. "This is significant," Patricia noted when I showed her. "It establishes a pattern of behavior that goes beyond your situation. With your permission, I'd like to subpoena his financial records as part of our discovery process." The results of that discovery were eye-opening. Gregory and Stephanie were underwater financially despite their apparent luxury lifestyle. The beach house had been purchased with minimal down payment and creative financing through Stephanie's real estate connections. They carried over $120,000 in credit card debt. The new luxury vehicles were leased with balloon payments due. They were spending nearly twice their actual income each month. "They're living in a financial house of cards," Patricia explained. "Your refusal to provide the $550,000 wasn't just disappointing to them, it was potentially catastrophic because they'd already made commitments assuming they'd get this money." I felt a complex mix of emotions, vindication that my instincts had been correct, but also profound sadness that my son's life had become such an elaborate financial deception. How had he gone so far down this path? As our preparation continued, Amanda made a breakthrough. Through social media connections, she discovered another family who had experienced similar manipulation from Gregory and Stephanie. James, Amanda's husband, knew the son of this family through work connections and arranged a careful conversation. This family, the Richardsons, had been approached about investing in Gregory and Stephanie's previous home in Atlanta. They had declined, resulting in a severe falling out with limited contact since. After hearing about our situation, they agreed to provide a written statement about their experience. While our case strengthened, Gregory refused multiple opportunities to settle. Patricia arranged a mediation session 2 weeks before the court date, which Gregory and his lawyer attended with even more outlandish demands than the original lawsuit. They now claimed I had promised not just the $550,000, but ongoing financial support for property taxes and maintenance. "He's overplaying his hand," Patricia assured me afterward. "The mediator clearly saw through their claims. This will not work in their favor in court." The final days before the trial were a blur of preparation. Patricia conducted mock cross-examinations, helping me prepare for the emotional challenge of being questioned about my relationship with my son. I practiced staying calm and factual, even when questions became personal or accusatory. The night before court, I barely slept, despite Amanda staying over for moral support. I kept thinking about David, wondering if he had somehow foreseen this situation, when he made me promise to protect myself financially. By morning, exhaustion had given way to a strange calm. Whatever happened today, I would face it with dignity and truth. May 17th dawned clear and warm. Amanda helped me select a conservative navy blue dress and simple pearl earrings that had been a gift from David. "You look strong and dignified, Mom," she assured me as we prepared to leave for the courthouse. The county courthouse was an imposing limestone building in downtown Grand Rapids. As we climbed the steps, I spotted Gregory and Stephanie arriving with their lawyer. Gregory wore an expensive suit I'd never seen before, his expression confident until he noticed the group behind us. 6 of my former teaching colleagues, 3 neighbors, my pastor and James, carrying a thick folder of documents. Inside the courtroom, we took our places. The judge, an older woman named Judge Harriet Brennan, entered promptly at 9:00 a.m. After the preliminary procedures, Gregory's lawyer presented their opening argument, painting me as a wealthy, miserly woman withholding promised financial support from my struggling son. "Mrs. Harmon has accumulated substantial wealth through inheritance and investment," he claimed incorrectly. "Our modest wealth had come entirely through decades of careful saving. She repeatedly promised to help her son and daughter-in-law establish themselves, specifically regarding their Florida residence. Based on these promises, which constitute a verbal contract, my clients made financial commitments they now cannot fulfill without Mrs. Harmon honoring her word." Patricia's opening statement was measured and factual. "Your Honor, this case represents an unfortunate attempt by an adult son to access his mother's retirement savings through false claims of promises never made. We will demonstrate not only that Mrs. Harmon never agreed to provide this substantial sum, but that there exists a documented pattern of attempted financial manipulation by the plaintiff toward multiple family members." Gregory testified, first describing a Thanksgiving conversation where I had allegedly promised to help with their Florida home purchase, a dinner that couldn't have occurred as described because I had been with Amanda's family that Thanksgiving, documented with photographs and social media posts. He portrayed himself as a dutiful son who had only sought reasonable help from a mother with excessive savings, claiming I had always promised to help my children establish themselves. When asked about previous financial assistance, he characterized it as token support, despite the substantial figures involved. During cross-examination, Patricia methodically dismantled his testimony. She presented bank records showing the extensive financial help I'd already provided over the years. She questioned him about the discrepancy regarding the Thanksgiving dinner. She introduced evidence of their extravagant spending compared to their actual income. Gregory became increasingly flustered, contradicting himself several times. When Patricia asked about his attempt to secure investment from his in-laws, he denied it until she produced the misdirected email. His face flushed with anger or embarrassment, perhaps both. After a short recess, Stephanie took the stand, attempting to corroborate Gregory's version of events. However, she became evasive when Patricia questioned her about their financial situation and previous attempts to secure funds from her own parents. The pivotal moment came when Patricia called an unexpected witness. Richard and Karen Richardson, Stephanie's parents. They had arrived during the recess, having flown in specifically for the trial. Their testimony revealed that Gregory and Stephanie had approached them with almost identical language about excess retirement savings and family responsibility when attempting to secure money for their Atlanta property. "We declined to provide the funds," Richard testified, "and subsequently, our relationship with our daughter became strained. We weren't invited to family events, and access to our grandchildren became limited. We're here today because we recognize this pattern and believe Mrs. Harmon deserves the truth to be known." Gregory's lawyer attempted to object to their testimony, but Judge Brennan overruled, noting its relevance to establishing pattern and credibility. The final dramatic moment came when Gregory's lawyer presented partial recordings of phone conversations, allegedly proving my agreement to help with the house. Patricia calmly requested that the complete recordings be played, revealing critical context, my repeated statements that I could not and would not provide such large sums from my retirement savings. As the full recordings played, Gregory's confident demeanor completely collapsed. He whispered frantically to his lawyer, who looked increasingly uncomfortable. Stephanie began crying quietly, avoiding eye contact with everyone. Judge Brennan listened attentively throughout, occasionally asking clarifying questions that suggested she saw through Gregory's claims. By late afternoon, when both sides had presented their cases, her expression was solemn but resolute. "This court will take a 30-minute recess before delivering its decision," she announced. Those 30 minutes felt like hours as we waited in a small conference room, Amanda holding my hand tightly. When we returned to the courtroom, Judge Brennan wasted no time. "Based on the evidence presented, this court finds in favor of the defendant, Catherine Harmon. The plaintiff has failed to establish the existence of any verbal contract or promise regarding financial support for the property in question." She continued, her voice firm. "Furthermore, this court finds the plaintiff's claims not only unsubstantiated, but deliberately misleading. The court is troubled by the apparent pattern of attempted financial manipulation evidenced in this case." The final blow came when she addressed legal fees. "Given the frivolous nature of this lawsuit and the evidence of bad faith on the plaintiff's part, the court orders the plaintiff to pay the defendant's legal fees in full. This case is dismissed." Gregory's face contorted with anger. He stood abruptly, ignoring his lawyer's attempt to calm him, and stormed toward the exit. Stephanie remained seated, sobbing openly now as the courtroom began to empty. I felt no triumph, only profound sadness mixed with relief. This legal victory couldn't heal the broken relationship with my son, but at least it protected the financial security David and I had worked so hard to build. The immediate aftermath of the trial was both physically and emotionally exhausting. After the judge's ruling, I broke down in tears as soon as we reached Amanda's car in the parking lot. The release of months of tension, fear, and heartbreak overwhelmed me completely. "It's over, Mom. You won," Amanda said, holding me tightly. "You stood up for yourself, and the truth prevailed." That night, surrounded by my support system at Amanda's home, I experienced my first peaceful sleep in months. The weight of the lawsuit had been lifted, and while the pain of Gregory's betrayal remained, it no longer carried the additional burden of legal and financial threat. The following days brought unexpected developments. Gregory made several attempts to contact me, first with angry voicemails, then gradually shifting to messages with a hint of remorse. I wasn't ready to speak with him yet and forwarded everything to Patricia as she finalized the legal aftermath of the case. Most surprisingly, I received a handwritten letter from Stephanie a week after the trial. Her words seemed genuinely contrite. "Catherine, I cannot adequately express my shame and regret for my role in this situation. What began as Gregory's idea became something I supported and encouraged, allowing my desire for status and luxury to override my sense of right and wrong. Gregory and I are separating. This experience has forced me to reevaluate everything about our relationship and the values I've compromised. I don't expect forgiveness, but wanted you to know I deeply regret the pain we've caused you." Through family connections, I learned that Gregory and Stephanie were indeed divorcing. The beach house was being sold in a short sale far below its purchase price. Gregory had moved back to Atlanta, where he was staying with a friend while looking for work after being laid off from his marketing position, another financial detail he had concealed during the lawsuit. In the months following the trial, I focused on healing. My doctor had recommended therapy, which proved invaluable in processing the complex emotions of being betrayed by my own child. Dr. Melissa Bennett, my therapist, helped me work through the guilt I felt, the questions about my parenting, and the grief over the relationship that might never be repaired. "You didn't fail as a mother," Dr. Bennett assured me during one particularly difficult session. "Children make their own choices as adults. Gregory's actions reflect his values, not your parenting." I reconnected with my financial advisor, Michael, to review my situation and ensure my future remained secure despite the significant legal costs. Though Patricia's fees would eventually be reimbursed according to the judge's ruling, the immediate expenses had required tapping into my savings. "You're still in excellent shape," Michael confirmed after our thorough review. "Your planning and discipline over the years created enough security to weather this storm." This reassurance inspired me to create something positive from this painful experience. I established a small scholarship fund at my former school designated for students demonstrating financial responsibility and community service. The Harmon Future Planner Scholarship would provide $5,000 annually to a deserving graduate, not enough to fund an entire education, but a meaningful contribution toward responsible students' goals. My relationship with Amanda and her family grew even stronger through this ordeal. Our Sunday dinners became a cherished routine, watching my grandchildren grow and flourish in a home built on values of responsibility and loving kindness rather than material acquisition. Approximately 4 months after the trial, Stephanie reached out again, asking if we could meet for coffee during her visit to Michigan to finalize some aspects of the divorce. I agreed with trepidation. Our meeting was awkward but ultimately healing. Stephanie had begun therapy herself and was working with a financial counselor to address her spending habits and establish true financial independence. She had taken a job with a smaller real estate agency in Tampa, focusing on modest family homes rather than luxury properties. "Gregory and I enabled each other's worst tendencies," she admitted. "He always wanted to appear successful, and I always wanted the perfect showcase life. We never stopped to build something real and sustainable." She also revealed that Gregory had entered therapy and financial counseling as part of their separation agreement. "His family patterns around money run deep, Catherine. I'm not excusing what we did. It was wrong, manipulative, and cruel. But he's finally confronting his issues instead of blaming others for his financial problems." 6 months after the trial, I received an email from Gregory. Unlike his previous communications, this one contained no demands, accusations, or manipulation attempts. Instead, it held the first genuine apology I'd received from my son in years. "Mom, I've spent months in therapy understanding why I did what I did. There's no excuse for suing you or trying to manipulate you for money. My entitlement and financial irresponsibility have cost me my marriage, my home, and most importantly, my relationship with you. I don't expect forgiveness, but wanted you to know I'm working to become someone worthy of your trust again someday." I replied with a brief but honest message acknowledging his apology and expressing hope for his healing journey while maintaining clear boundaries. Recovery from such a fundamental breach of trust would require time and consistent evidence of change. As the holiday season approached, Amanda tentatively raised the question of whether Gregory might be included in our family Thanksgiving. "It's completely your decision, Mom. We'll support whatever you feel is right." After careful consideration and consultation with Dr. Bennett, I decided to offer Gregory a path toward carefully rebuilding our relationship. I invited him to join us for dessert after our main Thanksgiving meal, a small step toward potential reconciliation that maintained appropriate boundaries while acknowledging his efforts toward change. This experience fundamentally changed my perspective on money and family. I realized that true financial education goes beyond teaching children to save and budget. It requires addressing the emotional and psychological dimensions of wealth and security. My volunteer work expanded to include teaching financial literacy classes at the community center, where I shared practical skills alongside discussions about healthy financial boundaries in relationships. David would have been proud of how I protected myself while remaining open to healing. During one of our last conversations, he had told me, "Your greatest strength has always been your ability to stand firm in what's right while keeping your heart open." In facing this painful situation with my son, I had tried to embody that balance. The rebuilding of trust with Gregory remains a work in progress. Our interactions are now governed by mutual respect for boundaries. He no longer asks for money, and I no longer feel the need to withhold information about my life out of fear it will be used to manipulate me. Small steps, consistent effort, and professional support are gradually helping us establish a new kind of relationship, one based on honesty rather than financial dependency. As I reflect on this difficult journey, I've come to understand that sometimes the most loving thing a parent can do is establish clear boundaries even when it causes temporary pain. Real love isn't about fulfilling every want or request, but about supporting growth toward genuine independence and responsibility. Have you ever had to make a difficult decision that hurt in the short term, but was necessary for long-term health and growth? I'd love to hear your experiences in the comments below. Sometimes saying no is the most loving thing we can do, though it rarely feels that way in the moment. If this story resonated with you, please like and subscribe to hear more reflections on family boundaries and the wisdom that comes only through life's most challenging moments. Thank you for listening to my story, and remember, protecting yourself isn't selfish. It's necessary for having something meaningful to offer others.